Yes, how are we all? I hope all is well. My name is Sachin, and this is the Total Cricket Podcast, episode 26. Today, there's quite a few things to talk about, but I'm going to begin by previewing the test series between Bangladesh and Australia starting on Sunday, the 27th of August, the first test in Mirpur. And this is going to be a very interesting series, in my opinion. It's a two-test series. That's it for the tour. The first time since 2006 that Bangladesh are playing Australia in a test match, long overdue. Obviously, this tour was supposed to happen in 2015, but due to security concerns, that was postponed. And this tour was also threatened by that pay dispute saga in Australia. But I think a very good thing that that has been resolved, and now the tour is going ahead. And let's look at the context of this series for both teams. For Bangladesh, this is another opportunity to assert themselves as a competitive test nation. As a test team, they've really evolved in the last year. If you look at their results, that series against England, they managed to win a game, that famous win in Chittagong, and that really got the ball rolling in New Zealand. They competed in that first game at the Basin Reserve. They probably should have been able to get a draw out of that one after the heroics of Shakib Al Hasan and Mushfiqur Rahim. But obviously, a lot of teams do struggle in New Zealand, so I don't think they really did themselves any shame. And then against India in their one off test, again, they competed pretty nicely. They were able to take the game to tea on the fifth day. So I think, again, that was a commendable effort against India in India, one of the probably the hardest tests in cricket at the moment. And then against Sri Lanka, they managed to win a test for the first time in Sri Lanka, getting another 1-all draw out of that series. So, taking all those games into account, their last six tests, they've been able to win two of them. And considering these are against real top teams, big teams, then I think this would start to suggest finally, after more than 15 years, Bangladesh are coming of age as a test nation. The first thing to becoming a competitive test nation is being good in your home conditions, and Bangladesh certainly I feel are definitely on that path. And for them, they can look at this series again. They can definitely potentially win a game, I feel, in this series. So for them, definitely another step in their progression as a test team. For Australia, well, they haven't played a lot of cricket recently. We last saw them at the Champions Trophy, and then since then, it's been the pay dispute. They haven't played a test match since March, back in their tour of India, which they did pretty well, it must be said. They lost 2-1, but it was a very, very hard fought series. For Australia, this is their last chance to get their combination right ahead of the Ashes, although the conditions are really about as different as they will get back home for the Ashes. So, in that way, it is a little bit difficult to prepare properly. But at the end of the day, these are test matches, and I don't think they would have wanted their last test before the Ashes to be back in March. So certainly this series gives Australia an opportunity to really get that rust out of them and certainly build up a little bit of match practice. And also, looking at the wider picture, a chance for them to rectify their recent record in Asia, which has not been good. If you have a look at their recent record in Asia, obviously they lost the series in India 2-1, they lost the series to Sri Lanka 3-0, a whitewash. They lost the series to Pakistan in the UAE a few years ago, that was 2-0. So really, they have lost all the most recent series against all the other Asian opposition. Obviously, they haven't played a test match in Bangladesh since 2006. So I don't think they'd want that full set. That is not exactly the kind of record you want, to have lost all your series in Asia against all those oppositions. That's definitely not something they'll want. And it's a big issue for them playing in Asia. Such a dominant team at home, Australia, but in Asia, they have been found wanting recently. So they'll certainly want to rectify that. And bear in mind that the task is made that bit harder by the fact that their only warm up game was washed out in Fatullah. Obviously, the ground was completely waterlogged. So that is going to make it a little bit difficult for them to acclimatize. You feel that Australia is going to be a little bit underdone here. So certainly it's not going to be easy for them to really reverse this recent trend in Asia. Now, looking at the teams themselves, Bangladesh, well, there's been a bit of drama with the selection. We saw the original squad was named. Mominul Haq was left out, but now he is in the squad after Mossadegh Hossain. He withdrew with an eye infection, and Mominul has replaced him, apparently at the recommendation of the BCB president, Nazmul Hussain, and he has been a big talking point in Bangladeshi cricketing circles recently. His influence in the selection process. All squads have to be approved by him, and the effects of that have been seen recently. If you have a look at Bangladesh's recent tour to Sri Lanka, where Mahmudullah was dropped for the second test and at first told to go home, and then the next day they were saying no, he was going to stay and be a part of the one-day squad. And we also saw at the last minute Mehedi Hassan was added to the ODI squad on Nazmul Hossain's recommendation. So definitely he has been someone who has influenced selections. I think it's an unnecessary thing for Bangladesh, really. These kind of distractions, they need to sort that out. Obviously, there is some interference there. They need to sort that out, because that kind of stuff where players don't know where they stand, 1 minute you're out, then you're in, that creates instability. And that's not really an ingredient in being a successful team at all. So hopefully that gets ironed out for Bangladesh. But looking at the squad, I think obviously at the top of the order we'll see Tamim Iqbal and Sumyasaka. Sumyasaka had a pretty good tour of Sri Lanka, got a lot of starts, a lot of 50s, but his next job is to convert those starts, and obviously we know how good Tamim Iqbal is. Obviously was excellent in the Champions Trophy. Then at number 3 is the first real point of interest. It would appear that Imrul Kais will play there. Mominul obviously now in the squad, but I feel like because he was out of the squad to begin with, he would be lower in the pecking order than Imrul. Also, Imrul played at 3 in that test match victory against Sri Lanka, which was Bangladesh's last test match. He is the incumbent number 3, so I feel like Bangladesh will want to keep that team going. But the thing is, do I think Imrul Kais is a better test batsman than Mominul Haq? Absolutely not. Imrul Kais averages 28 in test cricket, and also he's not really a number 3, he's an opener, but he's being pushed down there due to Sumyasaka's form. Now, Mominul Haq, yes, he hasn't done well as of late. Obviously, he was dropped for that second test against Sri Lanka, and in his last 5 tests, he has only averaged 23. But if you think about it, this guy had an amazing start to his test career. He was averaging 50, over 50 before that run. He's shown remarkable consistency, which really was even more applaudable due to the fact that he is basically one of the few test match specialists Bangladesh have. We know Bangladesh don't play a lot of tests, so he isn't getting a lot of continuity. So I think the fact that this was his real first dip in form since his career started, and Bangladesh didn't really give him, I feel they didn't give him enough of an opportunity to get out of that. I feel they should have been more patient with Mominul, and as a result now you've got an awkward situation. You've clearly got a very good batsman who's now on the outer. I feel like Bangladesh have really got themselves in a pickle with this one, and ultimately I would feel that Imrul will eventually give way to Mominul, but really they shouldn't have to go through this process. Mominul should have just been in the team. Yes, they did make those changes and they won that second test against Sri Lanka, but long term, Mominul is your number 3. So I'm not a big fan of that. I think at 4 we'll see Sabir Rahman. He's had a reasonable start to his test career. Again, a lot of starts, hasn't really kicked on, but he's an extremely talented player, excellent stroke player, a volatile character. Definitely, he has that impulsivity to his game that over time with experience, he will have to tone down a bit to really become a consistently great player, I feel, at the test level, but certainly a talented man. And if they want to really, really earmark him as the future number 4, give him a run in the team, I reckon. Then obviously at 5 and 6, it'll be Shakib Al Hassan and Mushfiqur Rahim. Number 7 is an interesting one. Now, obviously, Mossadegh made his debut in their last game, and he really impressed, scored a beautiful 50 and took a few wickets. But really now, with him withdrawing due to that eye infection, there's a selection issue here. Now, Nasir Hossain made a comeback into the squad as the backup for Mossadegh. So now does he slot him? Nasir Hossain has had actually a reasonable start to his Test career, it must be said. He hasn't played a Test match now for over 2 years, but he averages over 35, and he does have a Test match 100 to his name, obviously a batting all-rounder, has played more in ODI cricket than Tests, but certainly someone who does have some potential to deliver. But there is another possibility for Bangladesh. They could play Liton Das, the wicket-keeper, at number 7 and relieve Mushfiqur of the pressure of having to captain, wicket-keep, and be a key batsman in the team. So that's also another possibility at number 7. Or they could also not play Sabir, perhaps, because he hasn't quite set the world alight, put Mushfiqur up to 4 and play Liton Das there at 7, and you could have at 6 Nasir Hossain. They could do that, but again, I think it would be really not in the best interest of Bangladesh long term to not play Sabir. So I think it should be Sabir at 4, Shakib, Mushfiqur, and then Nasir Hossain, give him a go. So that's it for the batting for Bangladesh. Then the bowling, I think obviously the spinners really do pick themselves. Taijul Islam and Mehidy Hasan, that three-pronged spin attack with Shakib has been their go-to in Tests in Asia in the recent year. Obviously, Mehidy had a wonderful start to his Test career, took 19 wickets in the 2 games against England, has had obviously a few growing pains, as you'd expect, playing in New Zealand, very difficult conditions for spinners, but again, showed his worth against Sri Lanka. Obviously, a very talented player, and also has shown his ability to bat as an under-19 player. He was a very good all-rounder. At the start of his Test career, struggled with the bat, but now we're seeing more contributions from Mehidy, adding to the balance of this team. Taijul Islam, definitely a very decent left-arm orthodox bowler, particularly if this pitch is spinning, a good option. Then the fast bowling, I think we'll see Mustafizur Rahman, of course, as the first choice fast bowler. Then they have a dilemma, Taskin Ahmed or Shafaul Islam. Now, Shafaul's been brought into the team. We've seen Kamrul Islam Rabi, we've seen Rubul Hussain, we've seen Subhashish Roy, all tried, and none of them have really set the world alight in Test cricket. Obviously, Rubul's been around forever, and he doesn't have a good Test record. Kamrul and Subhashish tried recently, and again, they haven't set the world alight. Obviously, there's Taskin, who he's played just the 4 tests, taken 7 wickets at 80, so still question marks about whether he is ready to be a Test bowler. Taskin, obviously, a very young, talented bowler for Bangladesh. Then there's Shafaul, a little bit more experienced. He's played 9 tests, been a pretty decent one-day bowler for Bangladesh for quite a while. So that's going to be an interesting one, who they go with there. But that's it for Bangladesh, really. I look at this team and it looks quite good. It looks quite good, I feel. Because obviously the big thing is having a guy like Shakib to provide the balance to the team that he does, to provide 5 bowling options and not compromise the batting. And then you have Mehidy Hasan, who could definitely be a solid guy at number 8 who averages 25 in Test cricket. Bangladesh have got real balance to their team. They've got a lot of young, talented players. This team could potentially do some damage. But I feel like Mominul Haq should be in the team, and he needs to come back into the team as soon as possible. The other big exclusion was Mahmudullah. Obviously, he was dropped from that second test against Sri Lanka. He hasn't made it back into the squad. We saw at the Champions Trophy that 100 he made, that partnership with Shakib to steer them home against New Zealand. He's a very experienced, reliable player with a real calm head, does Mahmudullah. And obviously, when you look at his Test career, he only averages 30, yes, and he only has 100 to his name. But the experience of Mahmudullah, I think he should be around the squad. Whether he should be in the team at the moment, given the other talent, I would say probably more like a first cab off the rank. But I feel like not having Mahmudullah in the squad, I just don't see how that's a good thing. Just discarding him from the Test team, I believe, is not the way to go for Bangladesh. And hopefully he does come back in sooner rather than later, because he's a very valuable asset to this Bangladeshi team. But now looking to Australia, And obviously, we're seeing them after quite a while in Test cricket. But again, they are playing in Asia just like they did their last 4 Test matches. Obviously, at the top of the order, we'll see Matt Renshaw and David Warner open the batting. Matt Renshaw's had a very decent start to his Test career. I like the real the foil that he is to David Warner. Obviously, David Warner is such an aggressive player, hyper aggressive player. Matt Renshaw, a guy who likes to build his innings, a real old fashioned opener. I think it makes for a good combination. Obviously, still learning his trade. David Warner doesn't have a good record in Asia. He needs to work on that. He has been very susceptible to spin, and Bangladesh will certainly look to really go at that weakness. Obviously, at number 3, Stephen Smith, the best Test batsman in world cricket. Now, at 4, they've obviously got an interesting dilemma. Shaun Marsh was the number 4 in that Indian series, but it would appear that Usman Khawaja will get his chance. Shaun Marsh dropped after that series. Usman Khawaja, who sat on the bench that whole tour, now will come back into it. Obviously, Khawaja hasn't been strong in Asia. 4 Tests in Asia he's played and averages just the 19. Has a reputation as a bit of a flat track bully, Khawaja. Obviously an extremely talented stroke maker, but nonetheless really needs to prove himself in these conditions. But Australia really, we need to hope that he gets to form, because I think he'll play a key part in that Ashes team. Has an excellent record in Australia, so I can't see him not being in that team really. So big 2 Test for Usman Khawaja. Obviously, I don't think he should displace Steve Smith as number 3. Obviously, in the summer, last summer, Usman Khawaja was batting at 3, Smith at 4, but Steve Smith at 3, I think, is the way to go. Your best batsman at number 3 to set the tone. I think that Australia's got to keep to that. Number 5, we'll see Peter Handscomb. Had a middling tour of India, obviously played a great hand in that 3rd Test to help save the game, but he always looked good, had a lot of starts, but just found ways to get himself out. Obviously had an amazing start, a dream start to his Test career in the Australian summer, but now is time for him to really consolidate his position. Obviously has a unique technique, very back foot player, reliant on that back foot. Obviously has the weird way that he picks up the bat when he's in his stance. But if it works for him, then I don't see any issue. But certainly a chance for him to push on. Now at number 6 for Australia, that's going to be an interesting one as well. Are we going to see Glenn Maxwell, the incumbent, keep his position? Remember, in that comeback he made, he got 100 at Ranchi. Or are we going to see Hilton Cartwright? He's been drafted into the squad in place of Mitchell Marsh. Hilton Cartwright, obviously a batting all-rounder who bowls seam up, and Glenn Maxwell is a batting all-rounder who bowls some off-spin. So certainly I think the pitch conditions will play a part in who plays. Obviously, Mirpur, the last Test at this venue against England, it finished inside 3 days. You would think Bangladesh, playing against a Australian team that has notoriously struggled against spin, they are going to prepare another dust bowl. I think that they're going to go with Glenn Maxwell, also on the fact that he did pretty decently in his comeback against India. So I feel like Hilton Cartwright will have to wait for his chance. Number 7 is going to be Matthew Wade, the wicket keeper. Has not really performed with the bat since returning to the team last summer. But unfortunately for Australia, there is a little bit of a dearth of wicketkeeper batsmen in Australia at the moment. Although the way Wade is performing, you almost think, why did they drop Peter Neville? Peter Neville was doing just as well with the bat as Matthew Wade is now, and he's a much better wicketkeeper. So certainly that wicket-keeping position is still a big question mark hanging over that for Australia. Now the bowlers, the fast bowlers, obviously there's been a huge blow to the fast bowling stocks. Mitchell Starc is still not fit. He's had some big fitness issues recently, and again, that ankle is not really doing him any good at the moment. He's struggling to get back to fitness. He won't be on the tour to India either, so he's going to be coming into the Ashes quite underdone, you'd think. But Mitchell Starc, obviously such a good bowler. This is a big blow, and I feel that this is one of the things that's going to really open the door for Bangladesh to win a game in this tour. Mitchell Starc, we saw how devastating he was in Sri Lanka. He took 24 wickets in those 3 games. And in India, even though he wasn't at his best, to be fair, he wasn't needed a lot due to the spinning nature of those pitches, particularly in that first game at Pune. But we saw that he's that X factor. He can get you that wicket out of nowhere, particularly on these pitches in Asia that don't really offer a lot to the fast bowlers. He's quick and he bowls great Yorkers, great bounces. He can get the ball to reverse swing. That angle that he can generate when he comes around the wicket to the right hander is really difficult to play as well. Yes, he has his issues with consistency, struggles with his control at times, but having a guy like him in the team, you always want him because he can get that wicket. He takes the pitch out of the equation, and it's a big blow for Australia in this series losing him. And as a result, Josh Hazlewood will lead the attack. I thought he was unlucky in India. He bowled quite well, I thought. Didn't quite get the reward that he deserved. Also in Sri Lanka, I felt that he was quite unlucky. But in these conditions, he's a good bowler as well because he's just so accurate. And as a fast bowler in these Asian conditions, the least you can do is be disciplined and clog up an end for the spinners. And Josh Hazlewood also is no slouch when it comes to speed, can go into those high 130s. So certainly there's a big onus on him, but I'm sure he'll be up to the task. The second bowler, I think, will be Pat Cummins. Obviously, James Pattinson had to withdraw due to injury. He's been another one who's had so many injury issues. Jackson Bird coming in, I feel, as the backup bowler. I imagine that Australia will only play the two fast bowlers, given how the pitch is likely to play. Pat Cummins was excellent on his comeback against India. Came in pretty underdone, you would have thought. Hadn't played a test since his debut. And now, wow, he came back and it looked like he almost didn't miss a beat. Didn't miss a beat, and he's another guy who bowls quick, can bowl a really good bouncer, and also against India showed control to his bowling that's critical for fast bowlers in Asian conditions. So certainly I think Pat Cummins will get the nod as the second pacer. Has been a big prospect for so long for Australia. And after his debut against South Africa back in the day, we've been waiting for him for so long. But his injury issues have just kept him away. But now do we finally see Pat Cummins become the bowler we all thought he would be? As for the spinning options for Australia, I think it's pretty clear they'll go with Ashton Agar and Nathan Lyon. Obviously, Nathan Lyon has been Australia's spinner for a long time now. And we all know with Nathan Lyon, he's a decent spinner, but is he that world-class spinner that's going to win you games, particularly in Asia? Not really. Obviously, he was superb in Bengaluru against India, where he took that 8-wicket haul in the first innings of that game. But afterwards, he really struggled. And the issue for Nathan Lyon is going to be, really for me, his consistency with his deliveries. He can bowl a lot of loose deliveries. He needs to tighten up and add a little bit of control because I think the Indian batsman really got on top of him, scoring quite easily off him at the back end of that tour. He needs to really get that control to his bowling. But yes, Ashton Agar, now we haven't seen him since the Ashes, obviously, way back in 2013. And those games really, he'll be remembered more for his batting, coming in at number 11, if you do remember, and scoring that 98 as he did at Trent Bridge. But his bowling has come a long way since then, and he looks like the preferred option now as the left-arm orthodox. Obviously, Steve O'Keefe, he has had some disciplinary issues quite recently, a couple that I feel have ruled him out of the reckoning. I still think Steve O'Keefe is probably a better bowler than Ashton Agar, but obviously those external factors really haunting Steve O'Keefe. Ashton Agar, again, definitely a decent batsman, has first-class hundreds, and is a really, really good fielder as well. So certainly that all-round package will certainly help him play ahead of Mitchell Swepson, the young leggy. So I feel like that Australian team is fairly predictable, and really for Australia, the biggest thing is going to be how their batsmen play the Bangladeshi spinners. That's going to be where this series is won and lost. And ultimately, it's the battle of the spinners. Bangladesh's spinners against Australia's spinners. We saw the Indian spinners completely outbowl the Australian spinners, particularly in those last 3 games, which really got India over the line. Now, Australia didn't really have a good time of it playing Ashwin and Jadeja. They're going to have to be better against Shakib, Mehedi, and Taijul. And again, their spin bowlers are going to have to deliver. Lyon and Agar are going to have to deliver. But looking at this series as a whole, how do I think it's going to go? I'm going to say a 1-1 draw. I think that Australia obviously have big weapons with the bat and fast bowling wise, but I feel Bangladesh's spin attack is better than Australia's, and that will play a part. If Bangladesh win the toss in either of the games, then I think that Bangladesh maybe win these games. I feel that even though I said 1-1, I wouldn't be surprised if the series goes whoever wins the toss wins the game. I feel that we may see that in this series definitely, but certainly it's going to be a really interesting series, and I will be keeping my eyes on it very closely. As I said at the beginning, the first test in Mirpur starting this Sunday, and I do certainly look forward to it. Now let's move on to the next thing I want to talk about, and that is the CPL continues. And now we're getting towards the business end of the competition. Things are really heating up now. We've seen Trinbago and St. Kitts. They are now really the teams that look elite, the ones that look like they could go on and win the competition. Trinbago, they've got 7 wins from 8 games. St. Kitts, they've got 5 wins from 8, but there was a no result thrown in there. And then you've got the other teams. Jamaica, they're on 4 wins from 6. Guyana's on 3 wins from 8. Barbados is on 2 wins from 6. And St. Lucia, they're winless. They've lost 7 of their 8 games, and the other one was a washout. So at the moment, St. Lucia, they are eliminated, and then you've got Trinbago and St. Kitts, they are guaranteed to be in the semi-finals, and you've got Jamaica, Guyana, and Barbados fighting it out for those last 2 semi-final spots. Although I feel like Jamaica's pretty safe. They have 8 points. Guyana has 6 points, but Jamaica has 2 games in hand on Guyana. So I feel like another win for Jamaica, and that should confirm their position in the final. So I feel like it's going to be between Guyana and Barbados. Guyana have had a bit of a revival. They've won their last 2 games, and as such have given them a chance. But again, Barbados has 2 games in hand on Guyana, but they are on 4 points compared to Guyana's 6. So certainly that's going to be an interesting battle for the final spot. Looking at the tournament as a whole, check out this last game between St. Kitts and Trinbago, the 2 best teams in the competition so far. Rain wreaked havoc on this one. The Patriots, they got 162 for 3 and 13 overs they only had to bat. And then Trinbago, after they began their chase, Rain intervened again. And when they resumed their chase, they needed 52 of 17 deliveries, and they knocked that off in 12 deliveries. What an effort this was from Trinbago. Incredible stuff. Really remarkable that they needed 86 of 6 overs, and they did it with 4 balls to spare. Brendan McCullum with 40 of 14 deliveries, and Dwayne Bravo 38 of 10, including 6 sixes. Absolutely unbelievable. Completely outshone Chris Gale's 93 of 47 and Evan Lewis 39 of 14. A crazy game in the CPL. But certainly looking at the standout performers, Chris Gale is the top run scorer. He's got 299 runs. A bit of a resurgence for Chris Gale. He wasn't great in the IPL. This bodes well for West Indies too, obviously. He has just been named in the ODI squad for that series against England, which will take place after the Test series. So that can only be a good thing for the West Indies. He and Evan Lewis have been destructive at the top of the order for St. Kitts. We've also seen Chadwick Walton and Jason Mohammed do very well. Really, they've been the ones that have been big in the revival of Guyana. Also along with Riyad Emrit as well. He's been very decent with the ball. He's I believe, the second top wicket taker with 11 wickets. The veteran, 36-year-old fast bowler. But with the ball, I think Kesrick Williams, he's only played the 6 games, and he's got 12 wickets at the top of the wicket-taking charts. We know that celebration of his now very, very familiar, taking out that notepad and writing down the names of his victims. I think he's a canny bowler, Kesrick Williams, and definitely something that the West Indies can work with, I think, for sure. So, yes, I think probably the biggest news to come to the tournament in the recent days has been the fact that the Pakistani players will be allowed to return after the 24th of August, which is today, after that training camp which they had, which took place from the 22nd to the 24th. So they've been gone now for a little bit, but they're set to return for the back end of the competition, which is big, because definitely they are the biggest international stars, and without them, certainly the quality of the competition is diluted. Obviously, this is all been allowed by the fact that the national 2020 tournament for Pakistan has been postponed due to the confirmation of the World 11 2020 series, which will take place in September. And I'll talk about that a little bit later in this podcast. But certainly that is good news for the CPL. And now we are getting into the crunch time now with semi-final spots on the line. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Kia Super League. We're also getting to the crunch of this tournament. Each team has played 4 games, just the one round of group games left before the semi-finals. A bit of an interesting format to this tournament. The top team from the group stage will go straight to the final, and then second versus third will play off in a semi-final for that final spot in the final. I do like this format in the sense that coming first, there's a real reward to coming first, because in a lot of franchise 2020 tournaments, you see that first doesn't actually mean a lot. It doesn't really help you, really, but I like the fact that it does help the first place team have to play that one less game. But obviously, the con to that is the fourth place team does not get an opportunity. But looking at the tournament so far now, and we're getting a pretty clear picture of who's going to make the finals. The Surrey Stars and the Southern Vipers are confirmed top 3 teams. The Lancashire Thunder, they have not got off the mark yet, and they cannot make the finals. But we've got 3 teams, the Yorkshire Diamonds, Western Storm, and Loughborough Lightning. They are vying still for finals positions, so plenty still on the line going into that final round. If we do look at the fixtures, every game has some kind of significance. You've got the Surrey Stars playing against Loughborough Lightning. Surrey on top of the table on 18 points. If they win, they will confirm their spot at the top, and subsequently they will book their place in the final. So certainly a big game for them. And the Loughborough Lightning, being on 5 points, they have to win this game to have a chance of sneaking in there in third place, although they'll also need other results to go their way. The next game, the Southern Vipers against the Yorkshire Diamonds. This is also very interesting. The Southern Vipers need to win to have a chance of coming first, although they'll need Surrey to lose, but they are guaranteed a spot in the finals. So they can rest in peace. They can rest in that knowledge, definitely. And as for Yorkshire, well, again, they don't necessarily have to win, actually. If results do go their way, they can still come third and lose this game, but they would all but secure third place by winning this game. And in the last game, we see the Western Storm play the Lancashire Thunder. The Lancashire Thunder have nothing to play for. They're basically guaranteed to come last. And then you have the Western Storm. Again, they really have to win this game to potentially come third and sneak in there and hope that other results go their way. So it's going to be a really interesting final round of fixtures. Those games will be on this Saturday. So definitely I'll be keeping my eyes on that. Just looking at the tournament so far, who the real standout players have been. For me, there's 2 standout players so far. Susie Bates, she's got 227 runs. She's got out once, and she's taken 7 wickets already at just 8 runs apiece. Nat Siver as well has been excellent in an all-round contribution. We saw how amazing she was at the World Cup, and she's continued in that vein. She scored 118 runs at 59 in this tournament so far, and she's the top wicket taker with 10 wickets at just the 7 apiece. Great stuff from those 2. Other notable performances so far, I think definitely another big one, Rachel Priest. She scored the second 100 of the tournament. Ridiculous stuff from her. And also Renee Farrell. She has so far the only 5-wicket haul of the tournament. So good stuff from them as well, but definitely from me, Susie Bates and Nat Siver, 2 of the more elite all-rounders in women's cricket, really have been the standout players so far. But certainly, as I said, big last round, heading into the finals. We're getting, again, just like the CPL, into the real pointy end of this tournament. So it's certainly going to be very interesting. Now, the last few things I want to talk about today, some news, big news, and that is that World 11 series in Pakistan has been confirmed to be taking place in September. So we will see a World 11 play 3 2020s in Lahore, and this will be probably the biggest game, I would say, to come to Pakistan, really, since obviously they were stripped of really hosting international cricket. Obviously, in 2009, the terror attack against the Sri Lankan team, the bus attack. We did see Zimbabwe, they toured for ODIs in 2015, but again, that was marred by there was a bomb blast that went off pretty close to the stadium in one of those games. So again, there was still question marks, but I think the thing that really was a big factor in this was the PSL final that really, I think, gave people confidence because we did see overseas players play in that game and it went off basically without a hitch. So I think that has given people a lot of confidence to now pursue playing cricket in Pakistan. It's going to be interesting to see who makes up the World 11. Obviously, there will be some restrictions based on international commitments. Like, for example, obviously, I can't see any players really, obviously, for political reasons from India playing in this one. Sri Lanka are very busy with their fixtures as well. Then you've got the West Indies and England. They're currently involved in a bilateral series. Australia and Bangladesh also, they are involved, about to start a bilateral series. So I think what you'll find is that there'll be some ex-players, some retired international players, they'll play. Then you might get some players from maybe some smaller countries. But either way, this is a good step to really bringing back cricket to Pakistan. Obviously, calling it the World 11 might be a bit of a misnomer given the fact that it's probably not going to be a really strong team, but it's something. And Pakistan have to start somewhere. And there's also rumours that Sri Lanka will play one of their 3 scheduled T20s in Lahore. And also after that, apparently the West Indies could play a 3-match 2020 series in Lahore. At the moment, obviously, they're keeping games just to Lahore due to the fact that that is the only place at the moment that they can really guarantee top-notch security. But as I said before, you have to start somewhere. And this is a huge moment for Pakistan cricket, particularly if this is successful. Really, the cricket isn't going to be the big thing. It's going to be, are there no glitches? Are there no issues here with the security? If there aren't, then that's going to be another tick that allows Pakistan to build rapport with a lot of countries, and potentially in a few years' time, we might see full bilateral tours coming back to Pakistan, not just a 2020 here and a 2020 there. And that is surely I guess, the destination for this process. Pakistan, we know how great their fans are, what a colourful cricket nation they are. We saw at the Champions Trophy the life that they brought to that tournament. Pakistani cricket is so important to the health of international cricket as a whole. So bringing cricket back to Pakistan is certainly a big, big thing. That will be a real boon to international cricket. Also because really, now you look at Pakistan, there's going to be that connection now between the fans and the team. There's obviously been a bit of a disconnect. They haven't seen them a lot in the past 7 or 8 years. But now people will be able to see their heroes again in person. People, young kids, can have dreams of playing for Pakistan. That intimacy will only create positive things. So certainly I'm really rooting for this to go off without a hitch. All the best to Pakistan and anyone traveling to Pakistan. Hopefully it can be a great event where the whole cricketing world comes together to really rejoice in the beautiful game. Now on to the last thing I want to talk about today, and that is a bit of a bombshell. AB de Villiers has said that he will return to Test cricket, and he has stepped down as the ODI captain for South Africa. Now this is huge news. Now I've been talking in many of my podcasts, I didn't think AB de Villiers would come back to Test cricket. He hasn't played one since early 2016. I didn't think he was going to play again, but now he's saying that he is. This is very surprising to me. Now, looking at AB de Villiers personally, he's saying now he's going to make himself available for all formats from mid-October over. So he won't be available for the Bangladesh Test series, which kicks off South Africa's summer. So if things go how he says they are, then we should see him back in the South African Test team for that India series. Now, to me, AB de Villiers, there have been question marks over him. Obviously, he hasn't seemed to be fully switched on, fully committed to the cause. I'm not a fan of picking and choosing games that you want to play. You either don't play or you commit yourself fully. That kind of thing creates instability. It creates a bad precedent for people that really, I feel, would endanger international cricket. So, AB de Villiers, just looking at him for a second, he had a very poor Champions Trophy. He looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. He just didn't look right in that tournament. And obviously in the IPL, he had fitness issues, didn't really perform in that either. So really, AB has struggled for form recently. We know how amazing a batsman he is, how amazing a fielder he is. But at the end of the day, the recent results have not been up to that standard. And obviously, there's something external at hand here. Obviously, the off the field issues are certainly playing a part here. And hopefully, this sort of this clear indication of what he wants to do can lift that weight off his shoulders. We can move on because this saga has been going on way too long. For South African cricket to move on, for AB de Villiers to be back, no distractions, get back to his best because that South African test batting lineup looks so shaky at the moment. Obviously, they're having big issues at the number 4 slot, and AB de Villiers would be ideal to put into that number 4 position. And again, obviously, for their limited overs team, he's their best batsman in those formats. So certainly he would provide a lot if he comes back to his best for South Africa. Now, what I do like about this decision is the fact that he stepped down from the ODI captaincy and given that to Faf du Plessis. We've seen Faf du Plessis is a very skilled captain. Yes, he did make a few mistakes at the back end of that England tour. But again, no one's perfect. And South Africa were on a real low, I felt, as a team. And it was difficult for them to really push against that momentum. But Faf du Plessis, I think, is the right man for the job. He is an aggressive captain who doesn't take the defensive option. And I think his mentality really is needed given South Africa's very common issues of the fear of failure that they have. I think it really helps them, Faf du Plessis' captaincy style, to really try and overcome that in the next few years, giving him as well 20 months, I think it is, till the 2019 World Cup, giving him that time to bed into the captaincy role, I think is great as well. But really, this is about AB de Villiers, and to me, obviously, as I said, I didn't think he was going to return to the test team, but there's still big questions to be asked about whether he could come back to his best. He's had these fitness issues for so long, and now his form has been questionable recently. Now, he's getting older, and also it's important to mention that South Africa as a team are not the team that they were a few years ago. They're still a very talented team, but now there are a few holes in their team. So it's not going to be as easy for AB de Villiers as it once was with some incredible all-time greats to play alongside. So certainly this is going to be a challenge for AB, but the positive thing is that now there's no captaincy burden on him, and hopefully now the situation has been clarified, so there's no questions about that. But just focus on AB de Villiers getting back to his best, and I think that's the best thing that could have happened here. So hopefully we do see AB come back to his best, and I definitely look forward to seeing him back in the South African Test team in the very near future. But that is it for me today. We covered a lot in this podcast, certainly a lot of things going on in the world of cricket at the moment, but that is it for me today. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, you can check it out. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. All those links can be found on the Twitter page. The next podcast will be my review of the second ODI between Sri Lanka and India, that match being played today. But yes, that is it. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll see you later.